address the questions you've been given. So if you're ready to proceed, I'll begin with the first question. You're welcome to have a seat. And I'll start with the first question, which is to describe your familiarity, involvement, and/or support for some of the major city-involved projects in District 4, along with projects being funded at the state level.
You don't have to go very far in District 4 to see some street projects going on, whether it's resurfacing with asphalt or a total tear out and new concrete like they're doing on Grover Street between 50th and 60th. They just finished street renovation from 42nd Street East, which is basically where Grover goes into Fenton in front of Jefferson High School. Most everything I see is street in nature. The 42nd Street Bridge, just south of the interstate, they took out two bridges, and between those two bridges there was a little land bank there, and they excavated that land bank. They're putting in one huge big bridge. If you go up Q Street, you'll see two recent roundabouts at 42nd Street. That immensely improved the traffic flow and the safety of what's probably one of the worst intersections in the city. And there's also a proposed roundabout going into 48th and Q, which is going to be interesting because it's got the cemetery right there, which is elevated above the street level. So I'm kind of interested to see how that all finishes out. But probably the biggest project going on right now would be the Q Street development between 72nd and 60th Street in front of the proposed casino, where they're updating the infrastructure. And I would imagine there's state dollars involved there, as well as I would imagine that bridge project on 42nd Street probably has some state dollars too. And you drive around, you look at the city parks in District 4, you see a lot of new equipment. Christie Heights ball field was just renovated. And the new fire station at 35th and Q Street.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Melton.
Thanks. Mr. Hug, as a council member, there are considerable demands of your time. You will receive numerous invitations to neighborhood meetings and other events, often on nights and weekends, as well as full days of council business on Tuesdays. If you could please discuss how you would balance these demands with your personal and professional life while still being responsive to your constituents.
Thank you. Being currently an elected official for 20-some years, I'm familiar with commitment. That's part of what you take on when you get elected to any position. You are expected to be accessible by your constituents. And quite frankly, that's the part of the job that I really like. I like going to the fish fries and the church dinners and the festivals, being in the public. I spent a number of years on neighborhood organizations, and as part of that, I would go to other neighborhood group meetings, and I love going to those meetings, meeting people, and learning what their concerns on and how their views are. So you just have to make that commitment, and there is a time management aspect to it. There are going to be events you would like to go to, but you can't because there's other commitments. So you have to kind of weigh that out, but you have to be respectful to people. If somebody asks you to come and say, hey, I can't come this weekend, but you know what? What would be a next opportunity that I could come and talk? Personally, my own time management, I do own a small business, and if I was successful, I've made arrangements. I'll be bringing on a full-time manager that basically take over the operations of my business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hug, for coming in today and imparting your knowledge with us as we look for this closing of this position. I do have one question here, as was indicated in the beginning of your instructions, please provide a situation where you applied the following concepts: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And also provide the outcomes of that situation that you encountered. Thank you.
As I've mentioned, I'm currently an elected official. I sit on the Metropolitan Community College Board of Governors, where I sat for 24 years. Metro is the most diverse educational institution in the region. 35% of our students are minority. Of our nearly 1,000 full-time employees, 29%, or nearly 29% of them are minorities. We hired a diversity officer. I think our first diversity officer we hired when we created the position was back in 2002 or 2001. And for an organization like Metro, that's a global policy. It has to be ingrained in the fabric of the institution. It's just not hiring. It's every aspect of procurement. It's every contract you go out and let out. But it has to be practiced from the top down, from the bottom up. It has to be who you are. And on the board, we help develop and improve that policy. We help push for the funding to create that diversity officer position. And so those early efforts and continue to manage it and to promote it and to implement it on a daily basis, we see the fruit that we've bared just by our numbers. 35% of our students are minority. That's huge. Like I said, you won't find another educational institution in the region that comes close to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Hug. Right now, considering the issues that can be influenced by city government, what do you believe are the most important current and future issues in District 4 and the city as a whole?
The most important issue in the district today is filling this vacancy. And once that vacancy is filled, it's restoring the confidence in that seat in that district. In my opinion, that's the two most important issues in that district. I have confidence that whether it's me or one of my peers who ultimately are appointed, I'm confident that with the support of everybody on this board here today, they'll be successful. Beyond that, affordable housing is going to be an issue not only for District 4, but for the entire city, and for that part, for the entire state. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but it's going to be 20 or 30 years. We need to work on a plan to where we can address affordable housing for 20 years, 30 years out. I think there's some things we could do. I think there's some things we could probably do in the short term to help address that. But it's going to require stepping out of the box and looking at things a little differently. Retaining our constituents, retaining our workers in Omaha. We don't want to suffer from brain drain. We don't want to lose our brightest citizens to another city because working conditions are better, they're going to make more money, for whatever reason. So it needs to be important that no matter what we do, that we want to keep the people we have. We want to attract people to Omaha. Omaha needs to be open for business. We need to do what we can do to make Omaha a viable community to attract new businesses, to make the businesses that are here want to expand.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. As a council member, you would represent District 4, but your votes would affect all citizens of Omaha. Describe how you would balance effectively representing District 4 constituents and contributing to policy decisions that affect all Omahans.
Well, in my personal experience serving on a board, what has worked well for me is communicating with my fellow board members, listening to their perspective on issues and how they see the issue being affected by their district in their district. So educating myself, doing the homework, but also communicating with my fellow board members.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hugg. Two key council member roles are assisting individual constituents with resolving problems and collaborating with neighborhood associations and other district constituencies to resolve their concerns. Please describe how, one, you would approach assisting constituents with concerns and problems, and then secondly, how would you effectively engage with neighborhood associations and other district groups to address these issues?
The first thing you have to do is you have to be a good listener. When you're talking to somebody, you have to hear what they're saying, you have to understand the facts, and you cannot be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you explain it to me a little deeper? You gotta be able to get at the root of the issue. And that's where it starts. I like to document things as much as I can. If I have a phone call with a constituent and they have an issue, I'm probably going to ask them to follow it up with an email to me, because I'm going to want that documentation, date and time and in their own words. So I have something I can go back on and reflect and say, okay, I remember this phone call. This is what they talked about. And I anticipate I'd be taking notes in the process. Once you understand what the issue is, then you can help work a resolve to that issue. You can figure out, okay, is this a street maintenance issue? Is this, parks? Is this, what's the department that mows the weeds? I think that's Parks Department, isn't it? If it's a weed issue, you just have to get to the root of what the issue is and find a resolution for it. Having served on 3 different neighborhood associations, I won't say I'm familiar with how they all work, because I'm sure they all work a little bit differently. But I know what does work is being there, showing up, making yourself available, being able to have a dialogue, getting to know the people who are active in each group. And you do that by showing up. It doesn't mean you have to show up at every meeting, but it means you have to make an attempt to show up, be at a meeting, get to know who the players are in each group, and make sure you're accessible. Make sure they have your email address. Make sure they got a phone number. Encourage them. Hey, if you have an issue, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Just make yourself available.
Thank you. We're doing well on time. We have about, I think, 8 or 9 minutes left with 2 more questions. And the next question is, each week's City Council agenda contains dozens of items for the City Council's consideration. How would you prepare yourself to make well-informed votes on each agenda item?
I would imagine a week before each council meeting, you're probably getting a packet. Is that right? Would I assume my assumption correct? And in that packet, it's probably going to be documentations on each agenda item. It's probably going to be an executive summary. And the first thing I would do was sit down and read through that and make sure everything looks straightforward to me. And if I have any concerns, then I would reach out to the appropriate individual, whether it be a department individual, whether it be going to city council staff. But through all that whole process, I'm going to be talking to my fellow city council members, because Pete, I'm going to want to know what you feel about an agenda item, and if you have an issue on the agenda, or I'm sorry, if you have an issue with an agenda item, I'm gonna wanna know what that is, and I'm gonna wanna be able to understand what your issue is with that. Because my issue with an agenda item may not be the same you have, and I may not have an issue with anything on the agenda, but understanding where you're coming from, and where Amy's coming from, Juanita's coming from, Mr. Begley, Mr. Rowe, and Mr. Harding, that would help me be a more informed and well-rounded council member.
Thank you. The last question is from Councilmember Melton.
Yes, thank you. In closing, please discuss why you would be an effective council member representing District 7. District 4, I'm sorry. I'm District 7. District 4. Mr. Hugg.
I've been active in a lot of things. I've helped start homeowner associations. I've served as president on 3 homeowner associations. I'm a small business owner, and I sit on the Metropolitan Community College Board of Governors. I'm sure you're gonna get tired of me saying that. But the culmination of all those experiences makes me kind of unique to be a very good council member because I bring so much to the table. Metro Board is not the city council, I will agree, but there's a lot of similarities on how boards function. There's some generics to it. And, you know, I may not, you know, I guess the analogy I would be is the city council, as members, you're running a marathon. And Metro Board, we're doing a slow walk. So at least I have the basics to be, I'm walking, you know, I can get up to speed because I already have that groundwork in place. I grew up in the district. For lack of a better word or better description, we are talking about South Omaha. It's where my great-grandfather and great-grandmother chose to settle down. It's where my grandparents lived and died. It's where my parents grew up. It's where I live today. It's who I am. I mean, I am South Omaha. It's as much part of me as anything else. And I would consider it a huge opportunity to be able to bring my experiences to serve District 4. And I ask each one of you to please select me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate the responses to the questions and your interest in the City Council.
Good luck. Thank you for your efforts. I know this is not a fun process.
Thank you. And council members, we're on time. If anyone needs a short break like I might, we might do that for a couple minutes before we capture the next candidate coming down. We'll be back in just a second.
Thank
So I
you.
apologize for the short break there.
That's all right. That's all right.
We appreciate you being here today to interview for the District 4 council seat. Here's how we'll conduct today's interview, which I think has already been explained to you, but we'll just repeat it for everybody. We are using the structured interview process today. With a structured interview, the council will ask each candidate an identical set of questions. Council members will only ask questions from the structured interview and will not be able to ask any follow-up questions at this time. So you will not have the conversational nature of some interviews right now, but this approach ensures the consistency in the interview and ensures each candidate responds to the same set of questions. The interview consists of 8 questions. It is a timed interview, so we'll have a limit of 30 minutes and we'll stick strictly to that time frame. But I believe you'll find that adequate time to address the questions. So if you're ready to proceed, I'll begin with the first question.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you. And the first question is, describe your familiarity, involvement, and/or support for some of the major city-involved projects in District 4, along with projects being funded at the state level.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. Thank you so much for taking this time to even sit and talk with all of us. I am very appreciative of it. And I want to just start off first by kind of addressing the Omaha World Herald article that came out this morning, because I really just want to say that it's unfortunate, that I'm being attacked for my religion and where it is that I choose to go and worship. And I'm not ashamed to say that I love God, and that my Lord and Savior is Jesus Christ, and I believe that that's part of where I get my heart for people and my love for people and wanting to help those who are in need or those that are around me. And so I feel like that's where that comes from, and that's where my heart for people to see projects like what's going on in South Omaha. To get to the question, there's a lot of great things happening in Omaha. There's a lot of great things happening in District 4. There's a lot of opportunity for development to happen in this area. Things with the Choice Neighborhood Grants, that's a great opportunity for Southside Terrace and Indian Hills neighborhood to really get revitalization in an area that's part of one of the oldest developments here in the city and in the country. And so I'm really excited to see what happens with that, to make sure that that all of those residents there are getting communicated with, to make sure that there's open communication, that they know exactly what to expect and where we're at in the process, that there's continual conversation with those residents, that they feel a part of the process. Because at the end of the day, that's why we're doing this development. That's why we were able to get that grant, was to help improve the lives of those that were living in that area. Another great project that I think is going on down in District 4 is the Economic Recovery Act, and then also which is with LB 1024, and you also have LB 531, which is funding from the state, which I think is great that we were able to, the legislature was able to think about East Omaha over here and really help us with some funding. And so I think with those projects, it's again important that we really have good communication to those small businesses and those nonprofits that are able to apply for that funding and who are eligible for that funding, that they know about it and they know what requirements and what things they need to meet in order to be able to apply and maybe even win some of that funding as well. And so I think that's another program that's really important and can really have a major impact for small businesses and for people who are living here and trying to help better the community, not only in District 4, but also just in South Omaha in general. And then kind of on a smaller level, I think, is a lot of the projects that the South Omaha BID is working on. There are newer business improvement district here in the city, but they're doing great things like adding signage, which seems so small, but it's such an important way to market and say, hey, this is our district and we're proud of it and we want you to come and visit. And so it's little projects like that too that can just help improve the atmosphere of the district for everyone who lives there and also those that are coming to visit. And so I think there's a lot of great projects and developments happening in Omaha and in District 4, and I really want to be a part of improving those and making sure that they go smoothly.
Great, thank you. The next question will be from Councilmember Melton.
Yes, and Ms. Blackburn, as a council member, there are considerable demands of your time. You will receive numerous invitations to neighborhood meetings and other events, often on nights and weekends, as well as full days of council business on Tuesdays. Could you please discuss how you would balance these demands with your personal and professional life while still being responsive to your constituents?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. This is a great question. So actually, I was a student athlete when I was in college, and so from that point on, I really had to learn how to balance being a student athlete while also taking a full-time course load of classes, while also having an internship at the same time, and also volunteering in the community. And so I had to learn how do I balance the working out three times a day for those practices, but then also making sure I get my schoolwork done, and then also making sure that I'm able to handle the commitments of my internship. And so I feel like I'm going to take a lot of those time management skills that I got from when I was in college and when I was doing my master's degree even, and I'm going to bring that over into when I'm sitting on the council as well. And one of those big skills that I learned was organization. Really just making sure that I've got a planner, that I'm writing things down, that I'm making notes. Never leave anything up to your memory is one of those things that I like to say. And so people who know me, I love Post-it notes. They're all over my office because they're reminders to remember exactly what's going on, and so that I don't forget anything. And then 2, communication is just following up when you have a lot of different things that you're being pulled on or pulled for. And so just communicating with all of the different parties, whether that's a neighborhood association, whether that's council staff, whether that's with my personal professional job, and just communicating, hey, here's what I have going on today. I may not be able to make this meeting, or maybe a little bit late, or are we able to shift some things around to make it so that I'm able to attend where I need to be, and so that I'm able to get to everyone and I'm able to participate and really make sure that I'm available and I'm there and present. And so I think making sure that having clear communication and ensuring that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what's going on, because I think that's important, even for constituents as well, when those kind of questions are coming in, because that's another thing that you have to consider when you're sitting on the city council. And so making sure that, again, having communication. Hey, I saw your email about that pothole on your street. I haven't gotten to it yet because I had a meeting this morning, but I'll make sure to get back to you. And so it's just having those communication things that's going to help be able to balance all of the demands that city council will have, as well as what I have going on in my personal life.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Good morning. How are you today, Terry?
I'm doing well.
Good. Thank you for your time and your interest in this position. I do have one question. Please provide a situation where you applied the following concepts: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then if you wouldn't mind sharing what those outcomes were.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. I think this is a great question because diversity and inclusion are extremely important. And not even just diversity and inclusion when we're talking about race and when we're talking about gender. I could mention that, I'm the Black candidate here, I'm the youngest candidate here, which are things that are important because that brings a different perspective. But at the end of the day, I think what's also really important is to ensure that we have diversity of thought. And ensuring that people that are coming from those different perspectives, that have different ideas, that may think differently or look at something differently than us, that we're able to bring them to the table and that we're able to actually collaborate and have conversations. Because I think unfortunately right now in the culture there's just kind of that thought that we can't do that. And so that's one of my things that I do just individually, is to work with people who may not see things the same way that I do, that may not view things the same way that I do, that have a different perspective, that have a different a way of looking at things in life, and being able to sit down with them and find the things that we have in common, again, which is so important. And so I do that on a daily basis I am the head coach of a track program, and so I have a lot of different coaches that come from all over the city and all different areas, and so I have to continually work with them to make sure that our program is successful. I work with a youth group as well that is made up of a diverse group of young students from middle school to high school. And so again, working with them as well to just kind of make sure that, hey, it's okay that we have different thoughts, we have different opinions, we have different ideas. It's being able to, clearly communicate those, but then also making sure that we're able to work with those who maybe don't have those same ideas that we do. And so I think that is important, and that's something that I continually work on day to day to make sure that we're having those collaborative conversations, and at the end of the day, finding what we do have in common and making sure that we can work on those to get to our ultimate goals and our ultimate solutions.
Thank you. Mr. Begley?
Thanks. Okay. Is that on? Sorry.
I don't think so.
I'll talk loud. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Considering the issues that can be influenced by city government, what do you believe are the most important current and future issues in District 4 and the city as a whole?
I thank you so much for that question. I think one of the biggest issues for District 4, and really the city as a whole, is increasing communication and increasing citizen engagement. Because at the end of the day, city government is here for the residents of Omaha and to ensure that they're able to live their lives and that they don't have to, they can live in their homes safely and be proud to call Omaha their home. And so I think increasing their engagement and participation in city government, making sure that they feel involved, making sure that they feel heard, and that they have a council representative who is there and is present to listen and collaborate with them, even if there are some things that we may disagree on, that we may not see eye to eye on, knowing that they have a council member that's going to be there and is actually going to listen and work with them and collaborate with them and lock arms with them and say, okay, what can we do to get to a solution that's going to help District 4 and it's also going to help the city of Omaha. And so I think that is one of the biggest issues for District 4 and for the city of Omaha. It's just how do we get the people more involved in what is their government? One of the other big issues that I think for the city of Omaha, and for District 4 would just be there's a lot of growth and development, which is great. You know, we love to see Omaha thriving and we love to see it flourishing, but with that, you know, we want to make sure too that we're continuing to maintain all of the different infrastructure that we have and that we're making sure that we're supporting our small business groups. We're making sure that we're supporting and that they have the support that they need from their city council and from their city council members. And so I think making sure that we are working and growing at a great rate, and also making sure that we're working with not only developers but residents to ensure that, you know, that we're able to continue to make Omaha grow and thrive, not only for those of us who are living here right now, but for our kids and for our grandkids, ensuring that they also have an Omaha that they're gonna be proud to say is their home and that they wanna stay here and raise their kids and work and set roots down in here. And so I think that's the other big issue too, is just making sure that we're continually, as we continue to grow and as we continue to have great development and investment here in the city of Omaha, one, making sure that that continues to come in, but two, ensuring that those residents and those developers, that we have great relationships with them and we're able to foster those communications between the residents and the businesses that are coming in to make sure that we have a great Omaha and a city for everybody. And so I think those are the two really big issues as far as communication, making sure that we're engaging the citizens, but then also making sure that we're continuing to grow and develop Omaha and to be this flourishing, thriving city that we have today and keeping that for future generations.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. As a council member, you would represent District 4, but your votes would affect all citizens of Omaha. Describe how you would balance effectively representing District 4 constituents and contributing to policy decisions that affect all Omahans.
Yeah, thank you for that question. You know, you're absolutely correct. I think sometimes it's so easy for us to get stuck in our little silos of this is my neighborhood, or this is the little area that I grew up in, and forget that, you know, you're a part of a larger city. And so at the end of the day, when we get great things happening in District 4, or we get great things happening in District 6 or District 1, that's a win for Omaha. You know, that's a win for all of us. And so just reminding people that at the end of the day, we are all part of the same city, I think is important. And so that's something that I'm going to take with me if I get this appointment, would be to, yes, of course I want to advocate for my neighborhood and for my district, because of course we want to continue to see things grow. We want to continue to see our streets be safe. You know, we want to continue for it to be a great place for people to come and to visit and to live. But I also want to remind people that when there's developments happening in other areas of the city, that's also good too. And so to remind people that even though we live in different areas of the city and may see things a little bit differently, a lot of us unknowingly may be going through have some of the same issues and same concerns and want some of the same things from their city. And when we work together and we kind of start to talk to each other and realize, oh, they're not so different than me, then we can kind of come together and really realize, again, Omaha, we're one city, and I think that's the important thing to remember.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Blackburn.
Good morning.
Two key council member roles are assisting individual constituents with resolving problems and collaborating with neighborhood associations, BIDs, and other district constituencies to resolve their concerns. Please describe how you would, one, approach assisting constituents with those concerns and problems, and two, how would you effectively engage with neighborhood associations and other district groups to address those issues?
I think that's a great question, and it's one of those things I continually touch on, but it's, again, so important because at the end of the day, city government, we're here for the constituents. That's who we're here for. That's who we're trying to help make sure that they have, they're able to live their lives in peace and that they're able to walk the streets safely with their kids and enjoy Omaha. And so when they have concerns, when they have issues, I think it's important to be responsive and to have open lines of communication, ensuring that you have a council member who is going to be present and who's going to listen to your concerns and listen to your issues, listen to your ideas. If you have ideas for what could make the city better, and being able to have open communications, whether that's phone calls, whether that's emails, whether that's having one-on-one meetings and coming up with these groups who have an invested interest not only in District 4 but in the greater city as a whole, and working with them and collaborating with them and talking with them. And so one of my big ways of assisting residents with their issues, I used to work in the mayor's hotline a little bit too. I used to assist in there. And so I'm used to taking constituent calls and really working with not only the constituents, but also working with the city staff to come to a solution and figure out, okay, what can we do? Here's the problem. What are our options here? And so getting players and stakeholders in the room talking together, getting the constituents talking with the city staff, and not just me, because at the end of the day, we're all working together to ensure that these problems and these concerns get solved and get resolved, and not only in an efficient way, but in an effective way, where the residents feel like, yes, they listened to me, and I felt like I got a conclusion and a solution that really did benefit me and really helps to better the district. And so I think having those open lines of communication, that's important. And then also attending and being present in a lot of those neighborhood association meetings. Those are a lot of the people, they're gonna see different things in the area, in different areas that I'm not always gonna be able to see. I'm one person. And you have a whole district. And so being able to, again, talk to those people that are living in those different neighborhoods and being able to communicate and say, hey, what are those issues? What are you seeing on a daily basis that I don't see? Because I'm not waking up there at 6 in the morning, or I'm not going to sleep there at midnight. So I'm not noticing those things because I'm not there. But let's communicate and let's talk and find out what you're seeing, what are your issues, and how can we improve and make it better. And so I think, again, having those lines of communication, not only with the constituents and the residents, but also with city staff, and bringing those different groups together to work and solve and have solutions.
Thank you. We're doing fine on time. We have about, I think, 11 or 12 minutes left with 2 more questions. And the next question is, each week's city council agenda contains dozens of items for the council's consideration. How would you prepare yourself to make well-informed votes on each agenda item?
Yeah, I learned this when I was going through my graduate schooling. I was working at the time, and I learned, there's going to be a lot of late nights reading a lot and doing a lot of research. And so that is one of the things I'm going to carry over, and that it's just going to be a matter of fact of having to go and on the weekends read through council agendas and follow up and maybe make some phone calls or send some emails and do some research to find out exactly who are these different organizations, or who are these different issues concerning, and making sure that we've got input from the community again, and making sure I've got thoughts and input from the neighborhoods. And so it's going to be a lot of research. It's going to be a lot of reading, and it's going to be a lot of time, again, on the ground, talking to people in those neighborhoods, talking to the people who those different line items, who it affects, and finding out what their thoughts and what their opinions are on those different issues. And so I think that's how I'm going to prepare each week for council meetings, is trying to reach as many people as I can when I see those different issues that say, hey, maybe I'm not as familiar with that. Who do I know that does have some of that insight on the ground in the neighborhood that can give me a little bit more insight about what's going on? Again, it's bringing those people to the table, collaborating, even if we may have a different view, a different perspective, bringing them together, and working with others to make sure that when it comes time to vote on Tuesday, I can be confident about what my stance is.
Thank you. The last question will be from Councilmember Milton.
Yes, thanks, Ms. Blackburn. So last question in closing, please discuss why you would be an effective council member representing District 4.
Thank you so much for the question. And honestly, the reason I put my name even in for this application was just because, again, my heart for people. I go back to that. because it's true. And at the end of the day, like I mentioned at the beginning, that's what city government is here for. And I think that is what's gonna really help make me a good city council member, is because I really do care and I really want to help in any way possible to help make sure that people are able to have a neighborhood, a district, a city where they feel like they love where they live, they feel like they can walk down the street with their kids and they can feel safe. They don't have to worry about trying to look over their shoulders, that they feel like they have a place where their kids will grow up and their kids are gonna love and wanna stay here because there's lots of job opportunities, that they feel like they're safe, they feel like they love it, they're thriving, that the city is growing, and there's a lot of things happening, and so they want to stay here. And so I feel like because of my heart for people and my heart to see Omaha continue to grow, and my heart to collaborate and work with those who maybe don't have the same views and opinions as I do, and bring people to the table and have open conversations and have open dialogues with people to come to solutions that we can agree on and say, hey, yes, this is gonna be what's best to help move District 4 forward, this is what's gonna be best to help move Omaha forward. And so I think those two things, that's what's gonna make me a great city council member for Omaha and for District 4, to really help Omaha continue to thrive, not only for us that are here right now, but for our kids and for our grandkids.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate you being here and for answering the questions today and for your interest in City Council.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll now have City Council staff bring in Mr. Servignon. Welcome.
Hello, hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to read a statement about what we're doing here today that I know has been already explained to you, but we want to do that for everybody's benefit. So we appreciate you being here today to interview for District 4. Here's how we will conduct today's interview. We're using a structured interview process today. With a structured interview, the council will ask each candidate an identical set of questions. Council members will only ask questions from the structured interview and will not be able to ask any follow-up questions. So you'll not have the conversational nature of some interviews at this time, but this approach ensures consistency in the interviews and ensures each candidate responds to the same set of questions. The interview consists of 8 questions. It is a timed interview and will stick strictly to the 30-minute time frame, but I believe you'll find that's an adequate amount of time to answer the questions. So if you're ready to proceed, I'll begin with the questions.
Let's do it.
All right, great. So the first question is, describe your familiarity, involvement, and/or support for some of the major city-involved projects in District 4, along with projects being funded at the state level.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having this public interview and for taking the time to get to know me a little bit better. I serve on the Latino Economic Development Council on their steering committee, and one of the biggest things that they're known for is a grassroots group of South Omaha residents, District 4 residents, who have applied for state ARPA money to help revitalize South Omaha and District 4 in the Plaza de la Raza project, which the city has appropriated $500,000 for. And that's something that is very near and dear to my heart. I think that economic development is one of the biggest things that we need for South Omaha, for District 4. And I'm very proud to be part of LADC with Itzel and Armando Salgado and Marcos Mora, who are doing their part to make sure that we bring some tourism, some economic development, some attention to this plaza. So that's one of the projects that I'm very supportive of and involved with. Another one is my involvement as vice chair on the board of directors for One World Community Health Centers. And that is another project that through ARPA money and city money is looking to redevelop parts of South Omaha for them to be able to provide more services to the residents of District 4, something I'm very, very much in favor of. They're looking to build a mental health facility, which we all know, and I'm sure it goes without saying, is a big issue that needs to be tackled in our city and across the country. One other piece is definitely the Canopy South development. Cesar Garcia, their executive director, is doing a fantastic job and is a friend and is somebody that is putting together and redeveloping that whole Mandan Park, Indian Hills area into something that we can all be proud of. And again, a piece that the city has partnered with US HUD to appropriate some monies and to support that area. So those are 3 projects that I am either involved with or supportive of, and it's very much needed in District 4.
Great, thank you. The next question will be from Councilmember Milton.
Yes, as a council member, there are considerable demands on your time. You will receive numerous invitations to neighborhood meetings and other events, often on nights and weekends, as well as full days of council business on Tuesdays. Could you please discuss how you would balance these demands with your personal and professional life while still being responsive to your constituents?
Absolutely. I have the pleasure and the honor of working for Wendy Goldberg, my full-time role at Tri-Faith Initiative, and she likes to say, if you want to get something done, go find some busy people. And what she means by that is those that are dedicated and passionate and willing to make the sacrifice that serving or being out in the community demands, those are the people that you want to find. And in my experience, and I'm very, very, very happy that she is so supportive, and the board of directors is so supportive of my application here and willing to make the time to make sure that my Tuesdays are open and I'm able to be responsive. So serving on the Learning Community Council, representing South Omaha previously, I understand that there is a big time commitment that when it comes to public service, whether it's serving on a committee or responding to constituents or making sure that you're there for every meeting, I understand that it does require a sacrifice, and it requires discipline. It requires a real organized calendar to be able to make all the meetings, to understand that where you gotta be, when you gotta be. And at the same time, you gotta have that just a little bit of flexibility, so when that constituent pulls you and says, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? You're ready to listen. It's something that I've learned in my community service, in my public service, and something that I would make a priority for not just this council, but for the constituents of District 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for your time and your interest in this position. Please provide a situation where you applied the following concepts: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then if you would illustrate the outcome of that situation.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Councilwoman Johnson, for asking the question, and for this council for asking the question. I think it's very important. We could go into this ideological debate about institutional racism and oppression and such, and structural racism and such, but when we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, we really have to think about how it affects the people on the ground. And when we are cognizant of the need for equity, diversity, and inclusion, we make the quality of life better for our citizens. A great example of this is just 2 days ago, I was passing by the city clerk's office, and there was a Hispanic couple there, and they were talking to the city clerk, and they could not communicate with each other because the couple only knew Spanish. So I immediately stepped in and said, can I help? Which I know it's later on in the questions, I love helping constituents. I said, can I help you, in Spanish? And I was able to translate the communication between the residents of District 4, which they were, and the city clerk's office. And being able to do that, that's a small little thing that when we talk about equity, diversity, inclusion, and we get stuck up high, we have to remember that we are doing this because it can help improve the quality of life of the people down here. Simple things. I noticed the letter that they had, it wasn't in Spanish, it wasn't translated. A simple thing like that, when we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, that we can make sure that the city council can do, would have alleviated their need to come into the office, maybe take time off of work, to maybe think, oh, are we in trouble? Small things like that, again, can improve the quality of life. It's important, in speaking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, it's very important to recognize that District 4 does have a strong and large Latino population. This council has the opportunity to appoint the very first Latino to ever serve on the council. And that's an amazing opportunity that would be responsive to the district that that person represents. So thank you for asking the question, and I think that's a very pertinent example of why DEI is important in the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Eric, good morning. Thanks for being here today. My question is, considering issues that can be influenced by city government, what do you believe are the most important current and future issues in District 4 and the city as a whole?
Councilman Bagley, thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, we have to close the 100 officer gap that's currently existing in the Omaha Police Department. Public safety is one of the most important things that this council is in charge with, and closing that gap is something that is a top priority for District 4. There are many different ways to go about this. I am glad that the draft budget does include an increase for salaries and compensation for police officers as drafted, and I think that's gonna help put us on the map, and it would make us the largest, highest paying role in the Midwest in the area for similar sized departments. I think that's one step. The other step is to continue to invest intelligently into the public safety divisions, OPD, the OFD and such, to be able to retain those officers. So that's one piece that is very important for District 4 is to close that gap. A second one for District 4 and for the city is continued economic development. It's no secret that District 4 is landlocked. It's gonna take some creative solutions to be able to spur economic development. A big reason why I am so for the LADC work, the Canopy South work, the One World work, is because they're looking to invest into District 4, and it would be a high priority for me to see how can we leverage that one-time investment offered by ARPA into more sustainable investments down the road. So that economic development, I think, is a big one for District 4 and for the whole city. The third one is, and I have to be honest here, it's restoring the public trust in this seat. We're under no illusions why we are here and having this interview and having this process. There has been some trust lost with the constituents of District 4. A high priority for me will be to rebuild that trust. Whether that's one-on-one meetings, whether that's coffees, open houses, whatever that looks like, making sure I show up to the SONAs, to the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance meetings and such, and being out there in the community, and the community members knowing that, hey, there's Eric, not Councilman Servio, and there's Eric. I go talk to him about, hey, here's what's going on right now and right here. So those are three that I think are very important.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. As a council member, you would represent District 4, but your votes would affect all citizens of Omaha. Describe how you would balance effectively representing District 4 constituents and contributing to policy decisions that affect all Omahans.
Councilman Rowe, thank you very much for that question. I think it's a very important one. First of all, a strong District 4 means a strong Omaha, and that's very important. Increasing the tax base, for example, through economic developments for District 4 means more tax receipts for all of Omaha to use. I think an important piece and something that I always prioritize are the needs of District 4, but also continuously balancing them against the greater needs of the city. Being able to understand what's important in District 3, what's important in District 2 and 1 and wherever else is part of this process. And what any responsible councilperson would do was making sure that I'm balancing and leveraging and understanding what the needs are in your district, because when District 4 wins and any other district wins, we all win. I think this is a very important question that it always seems to be a balance, right? And I would bring that balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Two key council member roles are assisting individual constituents with resolving problems and collaborating with neighborhood associations and other district constituencies to resolve those concerns. Would you please describe how you would, one, approach assisting constituents with concerns and problems, and then secondly, how would you effectively engage with neighborhood associations and other district groups to address those issues?
Councilman Harding, thank you very much for that question. Like I mentioned earlier, I actually very much love assisting constituents. I spent some time at the Nebraska legislature working for a state senator representing South Omaha, and one of my key tasks was assisting constituents with what their problems might be. And what I learned there is the biggest thing is to authentically listen to the constituents. A lot of the time, they might not know what the issue is, but they know it's bothering them. And listening and doing root cause analysis, asking why, and why, to understand what they're trying to get to. And then translating that into, okay, what can the city do? Do we need to kick this to the state? Is this a federal problem? Is this what department would be most served with this, would most serve this constituent? I think a combination of really listening and doing that root cause analysis and then translating that into what we can do is the core of helping constituents, and something that I very much enjoy doing. When it comes to the neighborhood associations, it really is showing up where they are. Whether it's Kimra over at Sona and talking to her and asking her what's going on. Their meeting is tonight, by the way. Or it's talking to Margot Juarez over at the Buena Vista Neighborhood Association. Or it's talking to Rita, or any of the other presidents of the neighborhood associations. It's important to have a relationship with them, which I do, and to show up, which I do. And that's something that is step one, building those relationships and showing up. But again, engaging with them, being actually part of, like, for example, the SONA leadership, and really listening to the issues that get brought forth through these meetings, because they are very important meetings where the average Joe and Jane can come in and say, here's what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, what can we do to help? What can we do to improve it? So again, that combination of listening to the constituents and also engaging authentically with the neighborhood associations is, I think, a great combination to help the residents of District 4.
Thank you. We're doing fine on time, just so everyone knows. Probably have about 12 or 13 minutes left and only 2 more questions. And the next question is, each week's City Council agenda contains dozens of items for the City Council's consideration. How would you prepare yourself to make well-informed votes on each agenda item?
Thank you, Councilman Festerson, for that question. This seat requires due diligence. It requires taking the time and doing a good service to this seat, and that means researching the issues. It means understanding what ordinances or licenses or decisions that we have to make. But it also means talking to the department heads, and that's something that I would do, is if there's something with the Parks Department or Public Works or what have you, I would talk to them and get a better, thorough understanding of why do we need this and how does it affect the residents of Omaha. Another piece is talking with you, and I do intend to be a very collaborative and relationship builder with those that are on the council now to understand, okay, what's your take on this? What do you think? How is it going to affect the budget? How are we going to work together to make sure that we pass this and it's helping all of Omaha? There's a lot of research, and I understand there would be a big learning curve joining the city council, but I have the time, the energy, the expertise, the experience to be able to take all that on and translate that into some good policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question will be asked by Councilmember Melton.
Thank you. Last question. So in closing, please discuss why you would be an effective council member representing District 4.
Thank you, Councilwoman Melton, for that. Back in 2016, I was deployed as a flight medic sergeant with the Nebraska Army National Guard. In Afghanistan, we saw things that I hope nobody ever gets to see. As a flight medic, it was my duty to help those that were in need. And there were a lot of people in need. That was a formative experience for me. That really changed my trajectory in my life. After serving my country, I decided it's time to serve my community. When I returned back to Omaha in 2017, I immediately got involved. I got involved with MILPA, the Metro Young Latino Professionals Association. I got involved with NCAP, the Eastern Nebraska Community Action Partnership. And on and on and on, I got involved with South Omaha, serving nonprofits, associations, and I told myself, I'm gonna do my part. You all have my resume in front of you. You see that I am active and I care and I put the energy and I get recognized for doing good work for the residents of South Omaha, for the residents of District 4. When I say I'm here to serve and to be an effective council person, I mean it. Not only that, but I am somebody that's committed to making sure that there's continuity with this seat. Somebody that I already am on the record, said it out loud publicly that I would run for re-election if appointed to this seat. Continuity is important. Also, like I mentioned earlier, I am not here to throw any ideological grenades. I am idealistic and progressive in my ideals, but I'm pragmatic in my methods. I understand that policy decisions are one step at a time. I'm here to work with you to improve District 4 and all of Omaha, and that's something that I truly hope that you believe when I say it. Finally, and like I mentioned earlier, there is a large Latino base in District 4. There is an opportunity here to appoint the first ever Latino American council person. And that's an awesome opportunity and one not to be dismissed. I understand that in South Omaha, there are a lot of families that have been here for a long time, and they've done a lot of good for South Omaha, for District 4. I stand on the shoulders of giants in many respects. Some of them are behind me right now. I do bring a fresh perspective, a different perspective, but one that is informed by understanding the issues, one that is experienced by putting my work and serving in the many different nonprofits and boards and committees that I serve on. I understand the issues. I'll be a collaborative council person, and I would be somebody that brings a lot of energy to this seat. I would be the best person for this job because of all of those reasons, and I humbly ask for your strong consideration for this seat. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here and for answering these questions and for your interest in the City Council.
Thank you.
We'll now have staff bring in Ms. Briantos Patlin as our next interviewee. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
I'll read a little statement about what we're doing here today that I know has already been explained to you, but just to repeat for everyone's benefit. We welcome you here today. We appreciate you being here to interview for District 4. Here's how we'll conduct today's interview. We're using a structured interview process today. With a structured interview, the council will ask each candidate an identical set of questions. Council members will only ask questions from the structured interview and will not be able to ask any follow-up questions at this time. So you will not have the conversational nature of some interviews, but this approach ensures consistency in the interview and ensures each candidate responds to the same set of questions. The interview consists of 8 questions. It's a timed interview, so we'll be limited to 30 minutes and we'll stick strictly to that. But I believe you'll find that you have an adequate amount of time to address the questions. So if you're ready to proceed, I'll begin with the first question.
Sure.
All right, great. And the first question is, describe your familiarity, involvement, and support for some of the major city-involved projects in District 4, along with projects being funded at the state level.
Well, am I free to just
Yes.
kind of expound? In 2003, as I started Burlington Road Neighborhood Association, I did not know that I was going to be involved in so many entities, city, county, state, federally, with different projects, and such as Miguel Keith, Nebraska's Heart for Missing Children, the state, it would be the state DOT, transportation, for different things that were going on in Omaha, South Omaha, District 4. I think as issues arose, it was contacting them entities for our neighborhood association for South Omaha. And I believe that in 2020, because of redistricting, South Omaha got, they got a lot bigger. And we have different issues, and at different times I've worked with counties from Bellevue, and I would have to say the Kroc Center, the McGalkey, a few of the other places in South Omaha. I had been a part of the first and second meetings with them when they were just planning what they were doing in the area. The 42nd Street, D Street bridges that they're doing now, it's exciting to see. It took me 10 years. I did spearhead that. That's kind of, there's a lot of different things that I had done and worked with different entities. That's all I can say. A week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I worked with the Omaha Police Division with a missing girl that's been missing for 10 years, and that became a larger case, and I gave up my file to them, and they were with the FBI working with them. I'm hoping they find her. I hope to be a part of that, to find her and her baby. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Melton.
Thank you. As council member, there are considerable demands on your time. You will receive numerous invitations to neighborhood meetings and other events, often on nights and weekends, as well as full days of council business on Tuesdays. Could you please discuss how you would balance these demands with your personal and professional life while still being responsive to your constituents?
Oh my gosh, I've been doing that for decades. Honestly, having a big family, a large extended family, there's a lot going on here and there. Managing to come up here on Tuesdays and calling different people I get called from, I would say, constituents, because I did, have almost 3,000 people when I ran against Mr. Palermo. And I felt compelled to be up here and to represent the 3,000. And at different times, coming up here and speaking, and this is very intimidating, to come up here and to do this. And the thing is if we have issues that need to be addressed, it's important to be at the meetings and to partake and to be in a voice. As you can see, there's no voice there. And there's so many issues out there that our constituents want help with. And again, I thank you for listening when I called or text. And so I will be there. I always have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Patlett, for your time and your interest in this position. Really appreciate that very much. Please provide a situation where you applied the following concepts: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then if you would elaborate on the outcome of that situation.
Sure. Prayed about this one a whole lot because everybody sticks these three words: diversity, inclusion, and what was the other one? I didn't write it down. Well, they stick it in a box, and they want to say that this just belongs to one group of people. Well, South Omaha District 4 probably has the most diverse race. The economics, the homes go from 80,000 You go out west, there's $400,000 homes. So we have different perspectives on every different item in the area, housing, parks, everything. When it comes to inclusion, you know, we live in America and one nation under God. And the important thing about that is we have to work together. And I have worked together with a lot of different entities with, as a neighborhood founder and president. Little Mexican girl starts a neighborhood association in a Polish area. Now that right there, the first meeting, they wanted to know, what are we going to do with all these Mexicans that moved into my area? And yes, St. Stan's area is a primarily Polish area. And from the very first night of that very first meeting in Berna, I had to come and stand up and say, I'm Rebecca Barrientos Patlin. I didn't use Barrientos, I said Barrientos. And they were shocked that I didn't talk like this. And because they were very offended that these Mexicans were moving in. And what I did with that is I took them, we created Berna, and we worked on neighbors. Let's be good neighbors. Let's be kind to one another. Let's, you know, the good old, the good rule, the golden rule. And by example, you know, I just took one issue at a time that they had, and we worked it out. And we brought it all together. And I think we did a good job during Berna. And so I believe we need to look at a bigger picture of diversity, a bigger picture of inclusion. It's not just one little group of people, it's everyone. We live in America, we live in neighborhoods that have all these different races and creeds and nationalities, and we have to get along. God made us all. We have to get along.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning.
I can tell you from sitting up here, you don't look intimidated at all. You're doing just fine. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And answering our questions. Mine to you is, considering the issues that can be influenced by city government, what do you believe are the most important current and future issues in District 4 and also the city of Omaha as a whole?
Oh my goodness. There are so many issues. And as I see you all taking your positions and you look at all your issues, we have issues in South Omaha, and District 4 West is what I call it. And that's because of the gap. We have a huge gap. I honestly believe the CSO, the combined sewer overflow, is a major city problem, and people are taxed in. It's an unfunded mandate, which means, you know, we have to come up with money to fund that, and a lot of that comes from our taxpayers, residents, and homeowners. And I was on that board for the first 3 years, and the thing about that is it's going to keep going up. And what are we going to do about it? Or I should say, what are you going to do about it? Because there has to be another way. The burden is too high, and every year it goes back up, and people are upset about it, but there's nothing really that they can do about it. And so I would honestly look at different measures to help fund, you know, I don't know. There's things that I've looked at in the budget for this next year, and I could see some things that would relieve our homeowners and our residents. It's important. There's other things. there's the homelessness. I was homeless. I'm gonna let you know that. I was homeless. Twice my mom and dad's homes burnt down. And we slept with our families in our uncle's basement floor. So I know what it's like to not know where you're gonna lay your head. It's big. It's not just in District 4. It's moving. You see homelessness everywhere. We need to look at that a lot more. I know the mayor has, I think she's putting in place somebody to handle that. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I would hope that more people would come to the table to help. It's not just a one district problem. It's an Omaha problem, it's a state problem, and it's getting bigger and larger as it goes. And so I foresee, because of and I'm gonna put this out here because I wanna be totally transparent. I see the south border opened. My aunt lives on the south border. She sees people coming in all the time. She has a refrigerator outside and she puts water and food. And it's people are just coming in more and more. They have nowhere to stay. They lay down anywhere they are tired, and they're coming, whether we like it or not. We have to address this problem. And I don't know how we're gonna do that, but it takes a lot of heads to do that. It takes money, and it takes time and effort, and it takes a heart, because a lot of people don't have one. And it's just not Hispanics that are coming across that border. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. Rebecca, as a council member, you would represent District 4, but your votes would affect all citizens of Omaha. Describe how you would balance effectively representing District 4 constituents and contributing to policy decisions that affect all Omahans.
Oh my gosh, it's an everyday issue. That's being done every day here. It's being done every time you wake up. Something arises, somebody calls you, somebody texts you, and you have an issue right away. I may not be the one to get that answer, but I may know somebody that does. And working together with you all of our resources that we have behind you, churches, the faith community. I think praying is number one for me. I'm a woman of faith, and I love the Lord. He can see it all, and I would take that to Him first. Take it to you all, and I have. Things have arose in District 4, and y'all acted and got things accomplished, and we're thankful for that in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. Morning, Rebecca.
Morning.
Two key council member roles are assisting individual constituents with resolving problems and collaborating with neighborhood associations and other district constituencies to resolve their concerns. So please describe, one, how you would approach assisting constituents with their concerns and problems, and secondly, how would you effectively engage with the neighborhood associations and other district groups when addressing those issues?
Sure. Again, in 2003, Burlington Road Neighborhood Association was born from taking a walk, a one-block walk, and there was car windows broken out, and knocking on them doors to let them know that these car windows were broken out. It took one person to say, "Is there a neighborhood association in this area?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." And Norita Matt, I don't know if you remember her, she was so valuable in helping me create Burlington Road Neighborhood Association. She walked me through, all the way through, and through that, I just having different people like Gary Gurnett, our neighborhood councilman at the time, you know, and a couple other people that were very, very open to help and teach us what to do, how to do it. We went to South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. We went to Omaha Community Care Council. We done all that, and it does take a little village, like they say, not just for children, but to raise a neighborhood association up to help people, and neighbor to neighbor. That's the most important thing to do, you know, and being neighborly, taking that cake over to a new neighbor opens the world to them, you know, both ways. It works both ways. And so I would honestly continue that. You know, it's been a while. You know, we've been in a part of South Omaha for a long time, but now we have a bigger portion of land, and we need to look at what they have for their problems on District 4 West, and we need to be good neighbors out there, because we all have problems, but we have the same city services, and we need to make sure that them services are being met for them, not only in South Omaha, but District, I call it District 4 East of 10th Street. And so I want to be a good neighbor to them too. That's it.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, we have about 10 or 12 minutes left, so we're fine on time with just
What's
two more
up with that?
two more questions to go.
I thought I had an hour.
So the next question is, each week's city council agenda contains dozens of items for the council's consideration. How would you prepare yourself to make well-informed votes on each agenda item?
Oh my gosh, have been doing that. I'm proactive. I'm a multitasker. I love people. I love helping. If I can't find the answer again, you know, I'm a conduit. I'll get them to where they need to go. And many times I have done that. I've stepped out of the way after I've connected people. That's the main thing, that we need to always teach people how to speak for themselves, how to connect, you know, and being a conduit for many, many years. I had all these brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews, and I've always been a connector. And so always been a little fighter, because I have the 9 brothers, you know. The thing is taking each of those items that are on there that pertain to me. I think Mr. Bagley had mentioned, I was talking about some home in his neighborhood, and it was like, point taken. And you know, at the same time, I have a heart for that little community because I was a security guard there. But I understand that give and take, it's a give and take game, and working with, you know, other members of the community, other members of this board, and also members of other entities like, you know, Douglas County and the state, and higher if needed. Those entities may have something to do with what's on the agenda. And so I love research. I research things. I try to find other comparable cities that may have the same problem and how they solved it. And I may bring it and share that with everyone here, because why reinvent the wheel if it's working well? So I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The final question will be asked by Councilmember Milton.
Yes, thanks. So last question. In closing, please discuss why you would be an effective council member representing District 4.
I love my South Omaha, and now it's bigger. Born and raised amidst of the problems, the solutions, watched it grow. It was beautiful growing up. It was vibrant growing up. Then I watched it turn into a ghost town. That was sad to see that growing up. I learned to read in a bus. Me and my dad were driving, or in a bus. I learned to read. I could look up and it was like, that word right there, South Omaha means something to me. And when I see it downtrodden and when I see that something's wrong, I have to do something, whether I can get it fixed myself or find somebody that knows how to do that. Because I want it vibrant again. I'm watching, oh my gosh, all the different nationalities opening all these stores. That is exciting to me. And yes, that brings revenue, and it brings revenue to our schools. You know, as a security guard for Castelar Academy, I was talking and listening to what everybody was talking about, and they said that we don't have Melishocks, we don't have Greensburg, we don't have any of these great big stores, West Roads, you know, back then there was no Oakview. But they said we don't have any money coming into our schools because we don't have much revenue going on. We have these little small businesses that are trickling in money. They're businesses, they're putting people to work, and it's important that we have jobs and people to work, but the revenue isn't there, the funds aren't there. And it's important that I see people working and creating a life and a dream for themselves and their families. I love South Omaha. Like I said, I'm born and raised there. It's not a job I'm looking for. It's not a political thing that I'm trying to get to. You know, I love South Omaha. I love District 4. And I've worked with, I know people way out there on 100th and Harrison, you know, and they call me all the time to say, hey, you know, what's going on? Here's what's happening here. You know, and they have just as many things that are wrong out there that we have all here, like broken down sidewalks and grass grown on our streets. We need services, and we need a voice right there to let people know that, you know, we need the money to filter in to get things taken care of. We got corn growing in our gutters right now in South Omaha. And this is truth. This is truth. We've got kids walking on dirt roads that have never been tested for lead. I spearheaded the CAG meeting, Community Action Group for Lead Site in Omaha. I spearheaded them to test the schools, the parks, the churches, because I wanted where the kids are, I wanted that to be safe. I wanted them to be safe. The elevated blood levels on our kids, 6 and under, were high. And that's concerning to me. I have over almost 400 nieces and nephews, 5 generations, living in and around South Omaha. Cousins, that includes cousins and everything. So when I say it's important to me, it is important to me. And I think that the big thing is my heart is there. My heart is there because my family is there. And I think that's the biggest thing. Thank you for that. I can't say any more.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate you being here and answering these questions and your interest in the City Council.
Oh, that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, did I mention that all the ones before me, they just kind of stole everything I was telling them? Just teasing.
Thanks. We appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you guys for just giving me this opportunity.
You bet.
Thanks, Rebecca.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you, council members, for being here too. This will end the special call meeting.